Teach me about the Great Lakes. Teach me about the Great Lakes. Welcome back to Teach Me About the Great Lakes, a twice monthly podcast in which I, a Great Lakes novice, ask people who are smarter and harder working than I am to teach me all about the Great Lakes. My name is Stuart Carlton. I work with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. I work with all the Sea Grants, but in particular, Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. And I know a lot about walking into the doctor's office and waiting to get your blood drawn and seeing a bunch of people go in before you and get their blood drawn and then waiting for another 10 minutes while nothing seems to be happening. And you hear some noises and you wonder what those noises are exactly. And then there's quiet and then they call you back and you say, what just happened? And they don't say anything. But I don't know a lot about the Great Lakes. But today is a special day. The one, the only, the special. Teach Me About the Great Lakes. Ask Dr. Fish Live. So we're really excited. I'm joined today, first of all, by Carolyn Foley. The one, the only, the special Carolyn Foley. Carolyn, what is up?
Not much. We only have 2 viewers, but there's the cat that everybody always sees. So yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks. How are you, Stuart?
There we go. We got a live cat. I'm super fired up. And so, yeah, this is our first experiment in live streaming. And so if you are watching it live or on video, hello. And if you're listening to it in a podcast, look in the show notes at teachmeaboutthegreatLakes.com/55. You can check it out there. All right. But so with that, let's just go ahead and introduce our guests. You know, I didn't prepare this weekend. I did spend some time coming up with a new Teach Me About the Great Lakes theme song or interstitial music, but it wasn't related to this. And that was kind of a mistake. But I got this sort of thing in my head and I wasted all my time doing that instead of a appropriately fish themed transitional song. So we will have no fish themed transitional song. Instead, we'll go straight to the guests. So first, we are joined today by not one, but 2 Dr. Fishes. So we will introduce them one at a time. First of all, Titus Seilheimer, Dr. Fish, SG on Twitter from Wisconsin Sea Grant. Titus, how's it going?
It's going very well. Great to be here and great to talk about fish. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It should be fun. Have some questions. Have some games, maybe.
All right. So the biggest fail there was we totally had an opportunity to do like wrestling, like walk-on songs there.
Oh.
Fail, like, and in the left corner, Dr. Fish SG. Anyway, yep.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake. Yep, I agree. Or we could have that. What's that? Ba, ba, ba. Yeah, that song could have been on. Could have, it's baseball season. We could have done that, but we failed. Anyway, we're also joined today by Dr. Catfish, Katie O'Reilly of the Notre Dame Stream and Wetland Ecology Lab. Katie, how are you?
I am doing well. Now I just have it stuck in my head. I got to think about what my walk-up song is going to be for like an upcoming conference.
No, you do. That conferences should have walk-up songs. It's kind of, there are many reasons why conferences need to be improved, I think, starting with, never mind. But walk-up music, I think, would be a really good start. So, Titus, if you had to pick a walk-up song for your conference, what would it be?
Putting me on the spot here. I don't know.
That's fine. I mean, you got to start with that song. What is it called? It's called like War Without, it's got this really overbearing title. Do you know this one I'm talking about? It's like War Without Honor, or I can't play it because they'll throw us off YouTube, but I'll send you the link after. And it'll be good. All right, great. Anybody else have their walk-on music? If not, we're just going to start asking Dr. Fish. And if you're there watching on YouTube, just paste it in the old chat link.
I can do Job's final countdown. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's a solid one too. I'm feeling Carolyn actually would have a very strong walk-up music game.
You know, I think in the bonus of the walk-on, it's also a walk-off music. Like you're playing off that presenter who was right before you, who is still up there, because they went, 19 minutes, and so it's a nice, not especially subtle, but I think it's fair.
It's like the Oscar music.
Yeah, where they start bringing. Yep. Well, if they go too long, you can do a different thing you learned at the Oscars to the person in front of you, I suppose. But anyway, yeah. Or we can. You got to have keyboard cat at the ready, I think, at all times. All right. Well, let's go straight into questions for that. We asked people hashtag Ask Dr. Fish. And so we got a handful of questions here we're going to ask, and I've got a bunch more questions. But even before that, let's start talking about, like, initially, how did you get into fish stuff, right? That's a question we get a lot. Like, not just what is your career path exactly, but how'd you get where you are, and why did you decide to do it exactly?
Titus, you want to go first since you have the real job?
Okay, I will. So, for me, and, I'm always jealous of people like Solomon David who have this, Ranger Rick themed love story with Gar. I grew up in northern Wisconsin. I grew up on a lake. I grew up in and around the water. Um, and I think I was just sort of, from birth kind of shunted towards aquatic ecology, fisheries ecology. It's mainly a curiosity for me. I think a lot of people, a lot of fish biologists especially, it's angling that gets them started. And for me, I can angle if I need to, but I guess I'd rather snorkel with the fish and see them. So yeah, it was, just sort of a subtle thing. Uh, Lars Rudstrom at Cornell. So the quote from Lars is that, fish are, why work with fish? They're big. You can hold them with your hands. And when you tell people I work with fish, people know what that is. You don't have to explain what a zooplankton is or what algae is. So, it was sort of the most obvious. It's the most fun thing, and fish are the best.
Excellent. Katie, are you an angler? Can you angle, or do you have a different sort of entry point?
So mine is a little bit more the Ranger Rick side of things. But I grew up in the western basin of Lake Erie around the Toledo area. And some of my earliest memories were of going to the beach and seeing this pea soup green water wash up on the beach. Zebra mussels covered, like their shells covered the beach. And so you had to wear water shoes so you wouldn't cut your feet. So my introduction to the Great Lakes was a little bit like, maybe something isn't quite right here. But that was coupled with watching like nature documentaries, like Nat Geo specials about like the ocean. And for the longest time, I didn't realize like you could study, like people studied fresh water. It's like, oh, well, if a scientist, I go out to the ocean and study that. And so I actually did my undergraduate in marine biology before coming back to the Great Lakes and taking all my ocean skills to the Great Lakes for graduate school. So little bit of both, yeah.
Katie, coming to your senses and coming back.
Coming to my senses, yes, exactly. That's too much salt water.
Too much salt water. Where'd you do your undergrad where you did marine biology?
The University of Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit different than the University of Notre Dame.
Yeah. But you're from up here, right? So when you got to Miami, you're like, it's just miserably hot.
It's just too hot, too salty. Come back to the Great Lakes.
You thought you were going to Miami, Ohio, and
Right.
ended up in Miami, Florida, and you just went with it?
Took a left turn at Albuquerque, just went off the rails.
My master's advisor, Cecil Jennings was his name, at the University of Georgia. He's from the U.S. Virgin Islands. And he no kidding, he just retired, so that's his generation. He and his buddy looked at a map and saw the University of Wisconsin La Crosse and looked at it and was like, oh, that's near New York City. And so he chose the University of Wisconsin La Crosse and flew in the winter with his buddy. And they were both football players, so enormous guys who didn't look like a lot of the population of La Crosse, Wisconsin. And so the first thing to do was buy, it wasn't even the winter, actually, it was September, right? But it wasn't Virgin Islands weather, and bought these Christmas story style coats. And we're walking around La Crosse, Wisconsin at 6'4" or whatever, enormous. And anyway. So was Titus for you so I heard like for a lot of people there's fishing is one entry point. Another entry point is like watching National Geographic or Jacques Cousteau or something like that. And that's why actually I think the work that you two do is so important, right? Because it's a different version of that, but it's kind of the same thing. Was there something like that in your youth as well? Were you like watching sharks eat a bunch of baby fish rather, or what?
I did love Jaws. I mean, Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time. Yeah, it was growing up around the water, and like I grew up, we were commercial beekeepers. That was the family business.
Really?
Like biggest in Wisconsin. We had thousands of hives. I can talk to you about beekeeping. It's the reason that my wrists, still don't really work that well because I, messed them up as a young worker. Doing that. But, so we were farmers growing up on a farm, but both my parents had ecology graduate degrees, whereas my grandmother didn't even graduate from high school. So, I have that, the not first generation story of going to college and, having two kind of biologist, ecologist parents who also, I think that was sort of, really from the very beginning, just sort of interest in nature, the curiosity of it, and that's not what they did professionally anymore. But, we grew up around it. And I think I was like, I'm going to do something else in college. And it was always going to be biology. And then it was ecology. I was like, I like this stuff. I'm just interested in learning how things happen. And, aquatic ecology, you get to study fish, you get to see what makes the fish work, why they do what they do, where they go, when they go there. And so it's, I think fish biology is great just for a curious person who wants to, learn more about what fish are doing and why.
And so now that'll take us now we got to get back to this bee thing because I have a lot of questions, but that may be today, that may be a different episode. We have our first listener question. This is from, the Great Tim. We call our listeners the Great Tim. Well, unless their name is something different. And so he asks on Twitter, if someone wanted to become a doctor of fish, what fun or interesting #Great Lakes fish research ideas or opportunities do you see out there? What are some cool research ideas or opportunities that are out there?
Yeah, you're not like this. Where are we at here? Like this is getting into it, or what is an idea?
Yeah, I think just getting into it. So here I am. I'm in college, right? That's what I think. Now, this particular Tim is already an expert on aquatic invasive species across the Great Lakes. But let's assume that we're talking about a different Tim, and so we want to. Yeah, I'm in college. That's what it is. I'm in my ichthyology class, learning about things that I'll ask you about later. And I want to go into fish stuff. Like what areas of research? Like, is it a lot of life history stuff? Is there a bunch of ecology? What are the most exciting areas do you think? Kind of looking forward.
I guess as the most recent graduate student, I think some of the most interesting emerging areas are using like advanced technology, things like genetic techniques, some more of the advanced data and like big data sets that are coming out. People who have things like buoys in the Great Lakes and taking that technology and applying it to some of just still the basic questions we have about the Great Lakes. Like, why are certain fish doing well? What kind of changes are we going to be seeing? Because that's one of the biggest things. The Great Lakes are always changing for good and for bad. And so, can we get an idea based on some of these new and emerging technologies, or can we use those to help us better understand and maybe predict some of the changes we're going to be seeing, and how do we adapt to those? I think kind of generally speaking, it's like, okay, we have all this cool, fancy new technology, but how do we use it to answer some of our really basic questions?
Yeah, and some of the people who are doing cool things like that, like sending out gliders that, they can skim the surface, or things that can dive, or things that follow where everything else goes, but you can say, okay, you're a particle. If you're a sailor that's being blown around, what happens if you're a teeny tiny fish, or things like that. I think there's lots. Yeah, I think that's a cool set. And like you said, the Great Lakes are always changing for good or bad, but they're always changing, and we can always try to make the best of them. The other thing I think that's cool is in the Great Lakes in particular is how every single lake has something different that is, you could ask a question about. Like a yellow perch in Lake Erie is facing very different things than a yellow perch in Lake Michigan and things like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I would, throwing in there that even like a yellow perch, lake trout, these are sport fish, they're commercial fish, they are species we know a ton about, and yet ask a specific question about, like what does a larval lake trout do, or what is that first year of trout or salmon habitat like in Lake Michigan or any of the Great Lakes? And who knows, like there are still like basic biology questions about a lot of species that we don't know. And so that I think there's always opportunities. And as the Great Tim would know, every time we get kind of a new invasive species coming in, it almost can reset the whole ecology of the lake. And we have seen that again and again, especially in the last 50 or 100 years. You get a new species profoundly changing the lake, and the biologists have to learn basically a whole new food web and a whole new ecology. So that is job security and constant curiosity.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I think another one, sort of a couple themes that we see there. are, Katie brought up the idea of big data, right? We see that a lot. We've talked to a lot of people about the importance of data, I think, across this show. And so that's something that's really important. And the other thing I would point out, I feel required to point out, is the fact that, it's not just biophysical science research, right? There's a lot of research to do on the social science side. There's economics, there's how attitudes and behaviors. A lot of issues with trust, I think, in science have become very apparent in the last couple of years and things like that. Or, things like market research. A lot of people are wondering about the idea of, can we develop a market for goby dogs in the region and things like that. And so there's research to be done on that as well.
One person is wondering.
There's a single individual wondering about this.
I hear it every day. Every day on the street, someone's like, "Where can I get goby dogs?" I hear about goby dogs all the time. So there's.
And I just don't have answers for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I mean, that would be the number one recommendation.
But in all seriousness, people are looking for markets for like walleye that are cultured in aquaculture or things like that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Or like fish that come from like Asian carp. Like there were people who do economics on like what would you pay for Asian carp so we can try to eat them out of existence.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a ton of stuff, but that's really interesting. But and it does tie into I was being silly with the goby dogs, of course, but it ties into a lot of the themes we've listened to on this show.
Yeah, and as speaking as like an outreach professional out in the community, I think it's about building trust with people might not share your beliefs, but once you've built that trust and stakeholders are feel comfortable coming to you and asking your opinion and really accepting it. Like they may in general doubt the science that you see on say the on TV, but we are people and we can build that trust. So I think that helps to kind of be out there and talking to people on the coasts and helping to inform them.
So how do you build that trust, Titus? That's something I think about a lot. I mean, and you strike me as somebody who's widely trusted, and I think you work really hard to... I get nervous about using this term, but it seems to be the term du jour. Well, maybe the term of several jours ago, but those are the jours that are relevant to me because I'm old and my mind is senescing and whatever. And but so it feels like you have a very strong kind of brand and that trusted brand. To bring up another thing that we're talking about across the Sea Grant Network in a different context. But so how do you build that trust with stakeholders, especially with really diverse stakeholders, which we have in the Midwest, well, everywhere, really, I guess.
Yeah, I think it takes time. You need to be where they're at, so for me, it's, going to their meetings and, talking to them, riding along on the fishing boats and, seeing what they're doing. We are like, I think within, like people do know what Sea Grant is, and then a lot of people have never heard of Sea Grant, even though it's like, hey, our Sea Grant office here in Manitowoc has been around for over 20 years, but people are like, oh, what's that? So, I think it's not necessarily that everyone knows who we are, but I think the right people do. And yeah, it's just, kind of, and it takes time. You can't just show up and say, hey, here I am, let me help you, or, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Yeah, it just, it takes time. You got to listen. Listening's important. Hear what they're saying, understanding their perspectives. Because if you're a charter fishing captain, you're out on the lake every day, you're seeing something, maybe it's about alewife numbers, which isn't, they may see a lot of them. They are targeting fish that are around alewives, so they do see that, but then to kind of realize that you can't necessarily extrapolate what you see with your, kind of own eyes to a lake the size of Lake Michigan or any other Great Lakes. So I think it's, developing those communication pathways and just trying to pass that information along and not correct them necessarily, but get everyone on the same page.
Katie, do you have thoughts about, so you've worked hard, so building an audience and building trust are related, but maybe not exactly the same thing, right? So do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree with what Titus has said. And I think for me, one of the biggest things is meeting people where they are, both, physically, like if I'm going to a meeting, but also meeting people where they are, considering what their background is, where they're coming from, what their values, their beliefs are, and recognizing that, there's something we can agree on, what can we agree on? And then let's build from there. There may be things we disagree on, but what's the thing? And I think with the Great Lakes, that's one of the cool opportunities that I think is in this region, is that so many people care about the Great Lakes, whether it's for, they may care about it for different reasons, but I think there's all this vested interest in ensuring a healthy, functioning Great Lakes. And so working from that, it's like, okay, we have this baseline. Where are we going to go? And, maybe our solutions differ, but how can we work together to achieve this goal? So I would just say, in terms of that trust, it's being there, and it's being open and honest about your limitations of like, okay, I don't know everything, because I clearly don't. But I can help you figure out an answer.
All right, we got questions pouring in at hashtag Ask Dr. Fish or in the YouTube chat box. So I've got some here. We're gonna fire off some questions, semi-rapid fire. First one is, all right, this one is from the great Harper, and so she asks, why do fish have so many different types of fins, and what are they for? Which I think is a great question.
Yeah, that's a fun question, because you looking at a fish, you can see fish have different shape fins. They have the position of where a fin is on a fish can actually tell you a lot about the biology and the ecology of that species. So if we were looking at a muskellunge or a northern pike, long torpedo-shaped body, really muscular. They've got their caudal fin, their tail, plus a dorsal fin and an anal fin right in the back. And basically what that fish is, it's a sit and wait predator. It just kind of hangs out and then shoots out. Really propels itself. So it's almost like, all these fins are just to shoot at that prey and catch them unaware. And if you look at some of those prey fish, what might you see there? You might see a fish with sharp spines on its back, like a yellow perch or any of the sunfish. So, there's a pattern where you've got spiny fins because you need to defend from animals eating you. So it is there, just the variety of all the fins, of all the body shapes in fish is really kind of fun to learn about.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in there too. It's really about like how a fish is adapted for its different habitats. So you can think of the fins kind of almost like a boat. Like it helps, the fins help keep the fish sort of staying up. So it's sort of a stability. So you can think about like a boat's keel, and then the tail fin is like a boat's motor. And so everything is trying to keep that fish, up in the water and help it navigate its environment. So some fish need more power, and so they have a forked tail fin, and that helps them speed really fast through the water. Whereas some species, need to navigate more around weeds and logs. And they have, a little bit more control on like their, what we call the pectoral, or kind of like the fins that are right near their chest. And they have a little bit more navigability, or, they can be a little bit more nimble in some of those more complex environments.
And speaking, let's speak of goby dogs. I want to do a callback to goby dogs, and
yes,
the round goby, the tube nose goby. Look at those, and they actually have a fused pelvic fin. So all our North American fish have two pelvic fins. So I like to think, where your pelvic bones are. Think of those. It's like the fish's legs, but on a goby, they are fused together in like suction cup kind of fin. Which great for fish identification. If you've got, it's like, oh, hey, this has got to be a goby because these fins are fused. But also it can act as sort of like a suction cup because gobies, they are a benthic fish. They sit on the bottom, and you look at their, kind of body structure. They want to be down there. They don't have a swim bladder. They sit on the bottom, and there is a nice adaptation to the environment where you can just kind of hang out right there on the bottom.
And so you can tell a lot about a fish just by, and it's been a while since I've been a fish biologist or whatever. You can tell a lot just by looking at these different body structures, right? Both in terms of, or how they swim. You can tell, right? There's different swimming modes, and I'm sure that research is advanced, but just based on that, you can tell like what kind of life they lead, I guess. That's fantastic. All right. Well, related to swimming styles, and this one is from the great Keith, I believe. What is the fastest fish in the Great Lakes? Non bull shark edition.
So I was thinking about this one, and Titus might disagree, but I think there's a couple, it depends how we're defining fast. Is it the fastest one can keep moving over time, or is it like a really quick burst of energy?
Usain Bolt or somebody who's really good at the marathon.
Mo Farah, like the marathoner, yeah.
I'll trust you on that one, yeah, right.
So in terms of like fish that can make really quick, speedy, the Usain Bolt ones, those are things like Titus was saying earlier, northern pike, muskies, things that are these sit and wait predators, and they need a really quick burst of energy. And so like those can go, for very short distances, speeds of, 10, 20 miles per hour, but that's for a very tiny distance. In contrast, you have fish such as the salmon, like Pacific salmon in the Great Lakes, that are built more for kind of cruising. And so they might be able to have more of that endurance as they make their migrations around the lake. Maybe not those quite quick bursts of speed, but more of a sustained. But I'll see if this turns into a controversy with what Titus says.
Oh, yes, I would hope so.
No, sadly, I those are pretty much the same examples, I would say. With the Pacific salmon, look at their native range. If you're a Chinook salmon, you might, swim out of a river in Oregon and go all the way up the Alaskan coast, British Columbia coast, all the way out the Aleutian Islands, and then hook back. And that's like 5,000 miles. I mean, that's a huge journey where they go from a little fish up to a full grown fish when they get back. And, take that area and just lay it down on the Great Lakes. And it's like a bathtub for them.
Oh,
it's like,
interesting.
Oh, hey, I could, if I'm a salmon, I could swim from, Lake Michigan to Lake Huron, and maybe I could just keep going because this is nothing. They can cover a lot of miles. So they just keep moving, and why they move, where they're moving, they are following the food. And, so they kind of think with their stomachs, just like me. I'm like a less fit salmon, I think.
Yeah, but boy, if a grizzly bear gets you, it'll be so happy.
It's all I want. I want to give the grizzly that just excellent meal.
Yeah, that's good. So what about salmon in the Great Lakes? That's actually a good question that somebody had asked. I feel like there's mixed opinions about this, right? There was a huge fishery for a while, and there's still a big fishery, but it's a little different than it used to be. But these are introduced species, right? And if you talk to people who work in fisheries specifically, I think a lot of them are like, "Hey, this is great. We've introduced a fishery, and here we are." But other people say, "Well, why are we spending so much time and energy on something that's non-native when we're worried about invasions otherwise?" Y'all have thoughts on kind of salmon in the Great? Is it thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways? Like if you have a thumb dipped in microplastics, which way are you turning that thumb?
Yeah, I can leave that off because I think about this all the time. I mean, this is, and here again, this is like a stakeholder issue. Like I, have, the sport fishing, charter fishing side, more salmon. Commercial fisheries, they can't catch the salmon. It's not that they don't necessarily like them, but I think it is the reality that this is the lake we have now. I mean, we have like the Great Lakes are altered with the exception maybe of Lake Superior that has sort of the most natural food web. But just kind of considering where we're at in terms of things like gobies and alewives and smelt and spiny water fleas, zebra and quagga mussels. I mean, these are all introduced species. They're part of the food web, and so are salmon. And I think that there has been a lot of effort on restoring lake trout. I think we are definitely seeing some positive signs in Lake Michigan and Lake Huron now of getting more kind of natural reproduction. But at the end of the day, I just think, well, we're trying to restore this species that like 500 years ago was the top predator in the lake. And today's Lake Michigan is not that lake. So I think it's just sort of the reality that we need to balance these things, the mixture of kind of the native species that were here versus the species that succeed now. And, really like our discussions, like from a management stakeholder discussions over the last few years are trying to balance the number of non-native alewives so that we have enough food for the non-native salmon to eat. Because like fish in Lake Michigan Even though some are a little more varied in their diet, like lake trout and brown trout might eat a little more round gobies and some other things, it's still mostly an all-you-can-eat buffet on alewives. So, that is like, these are the kind of complex ecological management decisions that need to be made. And, I think it's just sort of the lake we have, and for better or worse, we need to make decisions and try to have the most good for the most people, I think is who said that? That was, it was the founder of the Forest Service. What was his name?
Pinchot.
Oh, Gifford Pinchot. That was it.
But so then the other question I think related to that is like, what is the appropriate baseline even? So you said we're trying to restore this fish that looked right 500 years ago. And I remember like this whole idea of shifting baselines is dangerous, right? And that everybody thinks it should go back to how they were maybe when they were a kid or even before that. And they're using that as their anchor point. But what is the appropriate anchor point? And I don't have a good answer to that, but that's kind of a question that's hard, especially given what you said, Titus, that like the food web has shifted a lot, right? Over time.
And it's going to keep changing too, because the climate's changing, and that's changing the different environmental conditions that are going to be facing the lakes. We may have spots that are heating up a little bit more. So you have warmer water areas that are not good for species in the Great Lakes that have been adapted to really cold, cool waters. They get kind of pushed out. New species that can live in the warmer waters may come in. So it's really tough to say like what's an appropriate baseline. And especially like you were saying, Stuart, there's people's perception of what the Great Lakes should be or could be comes into some of their background, where they're coming from. People who grew up doing the smelt runs, along up in Titus's neck of the woods, Milwaukee, along Lake Superior. Rainbow smelt is an introduced species. People who grew up in the heyday of like the salmon frenzy, like the late 60s and 70s, like that, they have those memories associated with just crazy amounts of salmon, that they were catching these huge salmon. And so, but if you think about even within those baselines, there was the baseline about 20 years earlier of invasive sea lamprey just decimating the top predators, in this case lake trout, in the lake. So the baseline seems to shift within decades, and that's, I think, part of the reason we need to have a better understanding of future projections, so that maybe we can help plan for that baseline, even though, as we said, the Great Lakes are always changing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It makes them fun. Okay, I'm going to ask another question that came in. I'm going to completely derail what Stuart is doing. So at the very beginning, Titus mentioned how, people know when you're talking about fish. So I have a background in aquatic ecology, invertebrate biology, entomology. And if you're not willing to kill bugs, then you can't really be a good entomologist. Insects, not bugs. And so I have definitely done I work on fish and bugs, because it's easier than saying you're an entomologist. You do what? So that said, there are many, many times that I'm like, no, invertebrates are important. The fish wouldn't be okay without them. And someone asked a question using the Ask Dr. Fish hashtag on Twitter that really intrigued me. And so, Dr. Fishes, from the great Bonnie, what do you think about the idea that fish don't exist?
I will disagree, and I think fish do exist because I've seen them. That is my answer.
Fair enough. So the idea here is so this is captured in a book called, I can't remember the exact name of the book. It's a pretty good book. Called like the fish. Carolyn, can you get the exact name?
Why Fish Don't Exist. Why Fish
Don't Exist. And so the idea is that people have done sort of cladistic analysis, which is like they go back and look, using genetics or what have you. And it shows how much I know about it. It's probably more what have you. And look, and they sort of trace fish back, and they realize that fish, what we define of as fish, come from like a bunch of different sort of evolutionary trees, right? And that there's no single evolutionary definition of fish. And that when you look at like a ray or a shark and like a bass, I don't know, and a Goliath grouper, that they're not necessarily that closely related. And very often they're much more closely related to non-fish than they are to actual fish. And I think this is really fascinating. It did not exist or was still in its nascent phase back when I took ichthyology, last century. Oh God. So I'm curious about that. How about this? What makes a fish in your mind then?
That is a really good question, because there's also another school of thought and argument that everything is a fish. Either nothing's a fish or everything's a fish. That everything has, evolved from fish. So in the interest of threading the needle on this one, and as someone who is not into the, kind of phylogeny side of things, I just study ecosystems.
The actual fish. We study actual fish, not these.
Yeah, I study actual fish. I don't know what.
Scientifically valid genetic things, yes, it's valid, but okay. Fish, come on, fish exist. Let's be serious. And we're all fish.
That reminds me of one of my all-time favorite quotes, Katie, or tweets rather, from a guy on Twitter. David Plotz is his name, and it's "Everything is a fruit and nothing is a nut." Because when you look into it, that is totally true. Exactly. And so everything is a fish or nothing is a fish, right?
And I think that's the hard part. So like Stuart, when you asked, what makes a fish, some of the things that might come to mind have very obvious exceptions. So there's things like, fish have fins. Well, it's like, okay, there are some fish that don't. Fish have jaws. Well, no, some fish don't have jaws. Things like lampreys are fish but don't have jaws. All fish have, scales. Not all fish have scales. So it's like every time you try and have a certain characteristic that you're like, oh, this is definitely what all fish have, it's like, nope, there's exceptions to this rule. So that's why I like Titus's answer. I study real fish. I go out and I catch fish.
And see, if you're watching online, I'm putting a fish in front of the camera. Okay. So, and it's
not just any fish. So,
yeah. Call back to Goby Dogs again. Yeah. And, I read why fish don't exist. And I will tell you, I don't remember. It did not stick in my brain. And I probably thought, fish do exist. So we are all fish.
Well, the book itself is more about this woman's personal journey and things like that. So I recommend the book. It was enjoyable. Titus, I think you gave it 3 stars. I give it 4 out of 5 stars in my unofficial non-existent rating system. I really did enjoy it.
3 out of 5 is a solid rating for me. If I liked a book, it was fine. I enjoyed it. 3 out of 5.
We work in extension. We're not here for these philosophical debates. We're here. You sit around a coffee shop and do that. We're going to go out, do some work, and then we'll be at the bar after having collected a bunch of fish, right? Yeah.
Stuart will be in the corner reading Candide. And,
rereading, I guess. Actually, I probably didn't read it, let's be honest.
And Carolyn will be watching WWE Raw Live. Yep.
No, you'll be preparing your speech or your slideshow for the conference the next day.
Yeah, it's accurate. Yes.
So, Stuart, I am the type of fish biologist who has never taken a fish biology class, but I have read Candide twice. So I can't say that I get much out of it, but I do read a lot of books.
There we go. You probably get it. That's how you build. You have this broad base of understanding upon which you can build the bridge of trust that you build. So that's
right.
Excellent. All right, great. Let's see. So then I'm gonna quickly see if there are any more questions that have poured in. Not many. So I think what we can do now is we're going to so I have no idea, those of you live, this will be interesting, no idea how this is going to work. And there's a chance that it works wonderfully. There's other chances as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to play a double 2-rounded game of 20 questions. All right. And so Katie and Titus are each going to think of a fish. Okay. And in the first round, we are all 4 going to rotate asking questions. And we're going to try to come in on this fish. And then after that, in the second round, we're going to have a challenge section. We'll get to the second round in a minute. We're going to declare a winner. And the winner gets 30 seconds of soapbox time. So they can stand on their soapbox and rant about whatever they want, as long as they're not proposing policies, because we are federally funded. Actually, one of the 4 of us can propose all the policies she wants. The rest of us can rant about whatever and, of course, express opinions. Just not about politics. All right, cool. So, all right, we're going to think, and we're going to go 20 questions. And So do you think it makes sense to do, we'll do all of Titus's fish and then all of Katie's fish. And then for the second round, this is good. So Carolyn, but this is a real, actually, Carolyn, would you agree this is kind of like an Old West shootout almost? We got people meeting up in the OK Corral. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%, Stuart.
I thought you might. So here was my weekend. As always, it seemed like such a good idea at the time. All right.
Whip it good.
Yeah, I'm such an embarrassment to our program. I'm sorry.
So many.
I'm
I was like, Knights of Sidonia. All right, go.
Yeah.
20
All
questions.
right. Anyway, so 20 questions. Titus, have you thought of a fish?
Yes, I do have a fish. I've written it down.
Okay. Oh, that's good to avoid cheating. Yeah.
Right. I don't, I'm worried that I won't be able to answer 20 questions about it, but we'll see.
Well, I think we've got Katie O'Reilly here. We're not going to need 20 questions.
Right.
That's debatable.
Well, that's why, again.
All right, who goes first, Stuart?
This may or may not. Oh, I'm going to go first because I've got one key question. And I forgot to mention, sorry, when we're talking about fish, whether or not they exist, we all know birds aren't real, though, right?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, good.
Obviously.
All right, good. Titus, is your fish a Great Lakes native?
Yes.
There's one question. All right, Carolyn.
All right, Titus, is your fish a fish that people like eating?
No.
Titus, does your fish live in all 5 of the Great Lakes?
Probably.
Okay, that's good enough. That gives us info. Does your fish like to live in the benthos, on the bottom of the lakes?
Yes.
Okay.
Does your fish live offshore mostly?
No.
Does your fish also live in like streams and rivers or just the lake?
Streams and rivers, primarily.
All right. And if you are listening live, feel free to chime in the chat with a question. Maybe I'll ask it. All right. Is your fish he's really into suckers. So let's start with that. It could be a sucker. Yeah. All right. So is your fish in the catastomid or sucker family?
No, it is not.
Oh.
Darn, I was going to ask, is your fish in the Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's? Anyway.
Nobody knows.
Some of them are if you read. Anyway, I've never Okay. Is your fish larger than a loaf of bread?
No.
Am I able to make a guess, or like what's the penalty if I mess up?
Yeah,
here?
that's a question. So it counts. That'll be question 10 if I'm counting
We're
right.
counting on you to make the guess.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to help narrow down for you. Yeah.
Titus, is your fish a mottled sculpin?
No.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Oh no, I'm nervous because
no.
That was a blow. Katie's feeling that one. All right, that was 10 questions. We got one guess. Is it a modest? So it's smaller than a loaf of bread. All right. Okay. Is your fish smaller than the meat section of a goby dog?
It is longer than that.
Longer than that. All right.
Is your fish one of Katie O'Reilly's favorite fishes that she likes to talk about a lot?
I don't think so. Isn't that all Great Lakes fish?
I was going to say that's good.
But she really, really likes lamprey that are the native lamprey. Is your fish one of the native lamprey?
Yes.
Oh.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay.
Count those 2 questions for
down
fairness.
to like 5 choices, 4 choices.
Okay. I'm gonna. Is your native lamprey parasitic as an adult or not parasitic?
Non-parasitic adults.
Non-parasitic adult. Okay.
Narrowing it down till Katie's next question.
Katie, if I had another question, what question would I have? Yeah.
I'm gonna go with. Is it an American brook lamprey?
You got it. American brook lamprey, right here. Proof that I wrote it down. American brook lamprey.
Look at that. That was 15 questions. I really don't have a no. Oh, I know what we should have done. Hold on. All right, hang on. We got to redo that. So, Katie, all right, this always goes right. Don't worry. It will go fine.
Yeah,
what I want you to say, I have a guess.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to do a drum roll. And then after, Quinn, this stays in if we keep this little show. Then it's obviously. All right. And then after the drum roll, you're going to take your guess. And then Titus is going to say, no. You're going to ask your question. I'm going to do the drum roll. Titus is going to say yes or no. And then we're going to do the symbol if it's right. All right. Who knows if it'll be right or not? All right. So, Katie, here we go.
Okay. Titus, is it an American brook lamprey?
Yes!
All right. Perfect. 15 questions. Exactly. Okay. All right. 15 questions. So now, Titus, to take round one, well, round one doesn't actually matter. Well, it matters for the next round. But you have to beat 15 questions. So I'm going to start again. It'll be the same order. Stuart, Carolyn, Dr. Fish. Just a different Dr. Fish. Okay. Katie, is your fish a Great Lakes native?
Yes.
Katie, does your fish live in all 5 of the Great Lakes?
It may have at one point, but probably not anymore.
Katie, is your species a benthic species?
Yes.
That was my question. I don't know enough about fish. All right. Okay. Oh, I'm going to tell me to can this one if it's a bad question or makes no sense. Oh, wait, they're only supposed to be yes, no questions, aren't they? Ideally. Well, never mind. I don't remember my swimming modalities, so I'm not going to ask you about that. Instead, I will ask you this. All right, meat section of a goby dog. Bigger or smaller than the meat section of the goby dog?
Bigger.
Bigger. Oh, all right. Hold on. We have a question in from the Great Geneva.
All right, so I will ask that on behalf of the Great Geneva. Katie, does your fish eat other fish?
Sometimes inadvertently.
Inadvertently.
I might be giving it away, but
you might. You very well might. Your turn, Titus.
Cartilaginous or bony?
Cartilaginous.
Titus, if I have another question, what would be a good question? Katie, don't listen.
You could ask about barbels.
Barbels. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Ask about barbels.
All right, but I'm doing it for the video, all right? Does your fish, more like this. Does your fish have barbels?
Yes.
Oh.
I defer to Dr. Titus.
Oh, wait, let me know if you have a guess.
I do have a guess.
Good, because I've lost count of the questions. What are we at about? 10 maybe? Yeah. All right, this is about 10. So hold on. Now, you know the deal. You make the guess. Then we efficiently do the drum roll with no problems. And then, like, one day I've got to get a ba-ba, but we don't have that, so we're going with the symbol. All right, so here we go. Make your guess.
All right, Katie. Is it a lake sturgeon?
Yes.
You also need the wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. I really got on my game, but we've all known that. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So that was Lake Sturgeon. That was in less than 15 guesses, even though I don't remember how many guesses it were.
Yeah,
so
but realistically, that's our fault, not theirs.
I'm an administrator. Fault doesn't matter. It's all about results. I'm never at fault. It's never my problem. All right. So now we're going to have a palate cleanser, and then we're going to come back, and this is what we're going to do. So now, Titus, you get to pick a number of questions. And then that is how many questions are available to ask in the second round of 20 or more or less questions. And then Katie gets to decide, does she want to be the asker or the askee? But first, let's go with, I don't know, how about this one? All right, Titus. For this most exciting round, the championship round, we're calling it. Do you want to be the asker or the askee? Or no, you don't know. Oh my God, I made up the rules.
There are no rules.
All right, hold on. All right, that's fine. Keep that in too, Quinn. I want everybody to know just what we're dealing with here, and that is my incompetence. Titus, for the championship round, what number do you pick?
1,000. No, not really. 7. I would like 7. I think 7.
7. Okay.
Whoa, 7 questions. So, Katie, do you want to be the fish thinker or the fish guesser. And audience, I forgot to say, Carolyn and I are sitting this round out. So this is only between the doctor's fish. So you'll get to ask all the questions, or Titus will get to ask all the questions.
Let me ask all the questions.
All right. So you have
and let me
7
change
questions.
to 20 questions.
All right, here we go. So now we got, if you're there, we got the split screen. We got Titus on the left,
Okay.
Katie on the right. Titus is thinking of a fish, and Katie has 7 questions. Did I get that right? Okay. Oh, he's looking around, looking for inspiration in his office. Oh, he's shrugging. This is not a good sign. He's shrugging. Of course.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember any fish. I've forgotten them
I don't
all.
know any fish.
Oh.
Titus, is it a Great Lakes native?
Yes.
That's 1.
Okay. Is it a benthic species? Lives on the bottom.
Yes.
Is it more of a cold water species? Or
No.
not specifically? Okay.
I'll give you a little extra. It's kind of a cool water.
Cool water. Okay. Is it found in all 5 Great Lakes?
I think yes, probably.
All right, we got 3 questions left.
Let's say it's fairly widespread.
Fairly okay. I can work with that. Does it generally live offshore, near shore, both?
Primarily a nearshore species.
Remember, your guesses count as questions. So 1 more narrowing question, and then you got to go.
Is this species a recreational or commercial fishery in the Great Lakes?
It has been harvested historically as a commercial species, and there is a seasonal recreational fishing for it.
It's gonna. I may be wrong, but Titus, is it a yellow perch?
No.
Titus is the victor. What? Champion Titus, what is your fish?
The white sucker.
The white sucker.
Is it in a Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's? There you go.
It was right there.
All right, Titus, as your victory dance, you can stand up on our virtual soapbox. You have 30 seconds, no more, no less, other than I will forget to count. The mic is yours. The floor is yours. You're going solo. Boom. Take it away, Titus.
All right. I want everyone, it is spring. You're looking for a healthier diet this summer because, eating well is really important. And I want you to think local fish this year. I want you to say, hey, I don't eat enough fish. I need to eat 2 meals of fish a week. That's going to be your goal. And to help fill that in, I want you to look for local fish. And that is farm raised. That is wild caught. Great Lakes region fish. Eat Wisconsin fish. Check out our website. Eat Midwest fish. Fresh Fish Finder. Take a look.
There you go. Ba, 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 ba. And you can find links to all of those websites and more in our show notes at teachmeaboutthegreatlakes.com/55 because this is episode 55. Believe it or not, that was probably too loud, but it doesn't matter. I get fired up when talking about episode numbers. I just can't help myself. That is excellent. Now, this has all been fun, and we like to have a good time here on Teach Me About the Great Lakes Live, and that's good. And we love your expertise. It's good. We love the games, but that's actually not why we invited you here on Teach Me About the Great Lakes this week. The reason that we invited you on to ask 2 questions, although one of these we've asked before, so we're actually going to ask a different one. And the first one of these questions is this. Carolyn came up with this one for the record. Rarely do we have such an obvious answer, such an obvious question with an obvious answer, but that's okay. Should French fries be dipped in ketchup or covered in vinegar? We'll start with our champion, Dr. Fish, Titus Seilheimer.
Incorrect. French fries should be covered in gravy and cheese curds.
Oh, there we go.
Yay!
So it's are you a poutine kind of Dr. Fish, Katie?
I'm there for the poutine, like in moderation. There's only so much my heart can take.
Well, I mean, it can only be in moderation.
It's approximately 3 bites.
One meal a day is just enough poutine.
It's a totally healthy amount of poutine. Though I'm gonna say it depends on the fries. Like, some fries are good for dipping, but like if you get those thick, like kind of wedge fries, then the vinegar is a good complement.
So when you dip a fry, this is not a thing where I grew up, or maybe it was, but one thing like very locally where I grew up in my house. So when you dip you dip it like it was ketchup, and then it tastes. It's like a regular. No, what do you do?
No, you shake the vinegar all over top of it, and you let the vinegar soak in, and then it's delicious.
Right. So you've taken your French fry and made it sour.
Essentially, yeah.
And that's an improvement somehow. Okay.
It is, yeah. Right. Next time we go.
I like pain, yeah.
Well, you know what? Yeah, we've got a number of restaurants that we're supposed to visit to get great sandwiches, and so next time I will try at JASM. If we go at the Joint Aquatic, got to say it carefully and pronounce it carefully and spell it out. JASM, the Joint Aquatic Sciences meeting in Grand Rapids. When we go there, maybe I will, probably not, but maybe I'll get some vinegar fries.
You get a bottle of Heinz malt vinegar. Mm-hmm. And you carry that with you, and you put it on your fries.
You just carry it with you.
Just carry it at all times. You got to be prepared.
Okay. That sounds good. All right. And now, so the second question is the same it has been. COVID restrictions are, as the context, are starting to relax, at least for now. Maybe for a long, who knows? We're not getting there. But so it's time for many people to start traveling again. And so we like to talk about special places within the Great Lakes, to give people ideas of where maybe they might want to go. So is there a place in the Great Lakes that is special to you that you would like to share with our audience, and why is it? And for this one, we will start with Dr. Katie O'Reilly.
The first thing that came to mind, because it is almost summer. It snowed the other day, so it's not really, but it's the Midwest. Yeah. So, but with thoughts of summer, I actually was thinking a place that's on the Great Lakes, which is Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. And it's kind of cool. If you've never been to Cedar Point, it's basically this peninsula into Lake Erie that has a really awesome amusement park. But it's always fun to like go in all the little kind of lakeside towns on your way to Cedar Point to have a fun day out on the lake. And so that was my first thought.
There we go. Is that where they have is there an amusement park there? Is that?
Yeah, Cedar Point's an amusement park. It's got some crazy roller coasters.
Awesome roller coasters.
Awesome roller coasters, correct.
Titus, where can people go that's super special in the Great Lakes?
I am going to invite people to cross the border and head north along the eastern shores of Lake Superior to the city of Wawa, take a left, and head over to the Magnatawan River, and explore that Magnatawan Bay, amazing place. You can jump in a sea kayak from there and just head towards Thunder Bay.
There you go. Thunder Bay, home to the Marine Sanctuary as well. I assume it's the same Thunder Bay.
No, it's not.
Different Thunder Bay, yeah.
How many Thunder Bays are there? Oh,
lots of Thunder Bays. Bring the
it's a
thunder.
Cool name, right? It's a cool name, I guess. All right, fine. Well, you know what? Go to any Thunder Bay. The main point is to go to a Thunder Bay, I think, or to Cedar Point.
Yeah,
or you know what? Go wherever you want. The point is get outside, right? It's an amazing resource. The Great Lakes are, and so we would love to see you out there. That is fantastic. All right, we will wrap up with this. Katie, if people want to go and find out more about the work that you do, where should they go?
They can check me out on Twitter. My handle is at Dr. Catfish with a K.
Catfish with a K. Now, the catfish has a K. It's not Dr. Catfish with a K, right? Like this.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Reminds me of that article from, 20 years ago. Like top 10 email addresses that would be annoying to give out over the phone. Have you seen this?
Well, there's Stephen with a P. Right. Stephen.
Oh, is that somebody? Anyway, my two favorite things from McSweeney's are that, the annoying email addresses, and then every fall there's an article I read about decorative gourd season, which I will.
Oh, it is decorative. Yeah, decorative gourd season is a very important season.
Yep, it is, and that's also a very important article. Oh, anyway, Titus, where can people go to find out more about your work?
Check us out at Wisconsin Sea Grant. That is seagrant.wisc.edu, or follow me on Twitter at Dr. Fish SG.
SG for super good.
Super good.
Super Goby.
Super Goby. Yes. This is me flying like Superman in the Christopher Reeve. He's got the one fist. All right. Anyway. Titus Seilheimer, Fisheries Extension Specialist. Is that right? Fisheries Outreach Specialist?
Fisheries Specialist.
fisheries specialist in general for Wisconsin Sea Grant, Dr. Katie O'Reilly of the Wetland and Fish Ecology Lab at the University of Notre Dame. Freshly minted PhD, off to even bigger and better things, if imaginable. Thanks, both of you, for coming on and teaching us all about the Great Lakes. Excellent. All right. Well, I guess we should just go ahead and close. Or Carolyn, do we have any follow-up?
Stuart, can I do a surprise post-credit question?
Oh, you can.
So I was really excited to answer the why do your toes and fingers get wrinkly and not the rest of you?
Yeah. All right. Let me introduce it. And then we'll, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's one question on here, and this one comes from a key internal stakeholder. So we want to be sure to get to it. And this is from the Great Hope, the amazing Hope, the one, the only Hope. Why is it when you go swimming in the Great Lakes or otherwise, or in the bathtub, stick your hand in and maybe do some plumbing in the toilet or whatever, why is it that your fingers and toes get wrinkly, but none of the rest of you?
See, so that is a great question. And I'm glad that question was asked because I had to look this up. And, thank you, WebMD and Scientific American, for giving me the answer here. And so this it's a physiological response. So what, these are our extremities and our fingers and also our feet. So the blood is being kind of drawn away from the ends of our fingers and our feet and our toes. And that constricts those blood vessels in there. And that's what causes the wrinkles. But the interesting part, and this is from a study from a few years ago, what they actually found was that evolutionarily, when you have those wrinkled fingers and wrinkled feet, you actually have better grip. So it is sort of an evolutionary advantage because, your hands are all wet, they get wrinkly, you actually have better grip then. So you can climb out of that river, or you can grab that fish, well, probably not grab a fish, but grab that branch with your wrinkly hands. And then you've got wrinkly feet, you have a better grip on a wet surface that you're walking on. So there you have it.
That is amazing. I have so many different images from movies right now with I'm climbing out and gills come out and things like that. Evolutionary advantage. Anyway, yeah. Anybody see Cabin in the Woods?
Well, and the one thing I'll just add is because I also had to look it up to be prepared. But what I thought was really cool was it's an involuntary response. And so people with certain types of nerve damage don't have their fingers and toes wrinkle because that nerve signal doesn't get transmitted. So it's something like, breathing where it's done involuntarily, but, we don't take it for granted.
That's amazing. You grow little salamander appendages, temporary. That's pretty badass. Bad, but great. Carolyn, do you want to do the thing?
I don't have it in front of me, so I can't. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Teach Me About the Great Lakes is brought to you by
the fine people at Illinois Indiana Sea Grants, with special guests from Wisconsin Sea Grant and the University of Notre Dame today. It's exciting. We encourage you to check out the great work we do at iiseagrant.org, ILIN Sea Grant on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media. We've been doing more Insta. Do the Insta. Teach Me About the Great Lakes is produced by Hope Charters, Carolyn Foley, Megan Gunn, and Irene Miles. Ethan Chitty is our associate producer and fixer. Our super fun podcast artwork is by the extraordinary Joel Davenport. Thinking about you, Joel. For no reason. I just mean thinking about Joel.
Because he's great.
He's great. He is. You don't have to ask a question to be great. You can just be great. But if you're not great, ask a question. The show is edited by the awesome Quinn Rose, and I encourage you to check out her work at aspiringrobot.com. If you have a question or comment about the show, send us an email. teachmeaboutthegreatLakes@gmail.com, which is now actually forwarding, so we'll read your email when it comes in. Or leave a message on our hotline at 765-494-IISG for Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Teach Great Lakes, which you should do. All kind of fun polls and other things there, so just go ahead and do it. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks, and keep grading those lakes.
It's so good. I miss chip trucks in like underneath the bridge where like they've got like the sprayer that they're like,
Oh yeah.
and it's like, oh man, it's so good. You're
They spray it
you're
right on
looking
top?
you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but it's delicious.
No,
if you
it
have
is.
good fries.
Yeah, it depends on the fries. It really
So does it
does.
get like totally soaked through? What is the deal? Like so is it like just the flesh of the fry?
It, like absorbs it, so it's not super. Yeah, it's not super. Especially if you don't vinegar, like Titus was saying, it's not super like, hey, I'm vinegar. It's
Yeah.
Okay, so you squirt it on.
Right.
So the trucks have big hoses, like.
I'll find
And
you
how
a
long?
picture.
How long do you have to let it sit for?
Not super long.
Okay.
Probably
We could
like
do an
enough time to
experiment.
like walk back
It's
to
like-
your table. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like one of those, the lab emergency showers, and you just stand
Yeah.
up. Your entire body is coated with malt vinegar.